Good morning and welcome to the Bias Buzz. I'm Don Irvine. He's Brian McNichol.
Good morning.
Good morning and happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there that's watching.
One of my favorite holidays. You eat, you watch football, no presents, no cards. Just show up, see people you like, have fun.
You have family coming in?
No, we're kind of on an island. We do it at Christmas.
All right, good. Then you don't have to worry about political discussions and all those things that are going on where people don't know what to do at Thanksgiving this year. They're all still wringing their hands about the election. And it's the craziest thing I've seen.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stories about that. Like, how do you handle your troglodyte relative?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm glad listen, neither you or I have to worry about that this time around. Okay, Black Friday. Do you ever do any of that shopping?
My wife does. She leaves before dawn. You see her like 10 o'clock, exhausted, with a bunch of bags. But she knocks out a lot of the kids. So, I mean, it's useful. It's a useful trip for her.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I think as I've gotten older, now that my kids are all grown, I'm trying to think, what do I need really on Black Friday? And most of the time now, it's just online shopping. I mean, I used to drag the kids out a few times when they were a little older, when they were teens, and they'd wait in line at dark 30 and for the Best Buy or whatever, for which, you soon find out that when you really want the deal, it's already been gone because they'd hand out the coupons for those limited items,
right?
And you're actually wasting your time,
right?
So you have to figure out. After a while, you have to kind of learn the game as to where you're going to go to what's really going out there and everything like that. So,
and I've never been able to make like the goodies I want match up to holidays anyway. So it's like I want my goodie in July. Nobody's buying anything in July. So.
All right, it's National Jukebox Day. Hey, that's
Yeah.
So I was watching Fox News this morning, Fox and Friends, and they actually had they did a little diner setup with Johnny Rockets and talked about that. And I think what did the guy say? Well, the first jukebox was in 1889 or something like that. It's like I can't quite imagine what kind of music was at that point in time. It's like you do the minuet or something. I don't know.
What probably is closest to it now is. Like Grateful Dead, where it's like banjos and horns and kind of a muddy mix of stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, those are what they were based on was traveling shows of, the 1880s, 1890s. That's kind of what his model was when they were creating it.
All right. Can't go out without without major football action. I mean,
it's a big football weekend.
Yeah, I mean. Tomorrow will be great for football, NFL fanatics in particular. We got a lot of good games going on there, and see if the Redskins can continue their role against the Cowboys. That'll be a pretty tough game for them.
The Cowboys have played the last 3 weeks. They have won without playing particularly well, so they're kind of due to play well, which does not augur well for the Redskins. I'm a Cowboys fan, so that's
I knew that was coming.
It's a big day for me because then at night LSU plays Texas A&M. For the second straight year, we have a coach going into that game coaching for his job. Last year, LSU won. They carried the coach off the field. We decided to keep him as a result of all the love that was shown that day. We ended up having to fire him 4 games into this season.
He was shown the door later.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and Redskins and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. It always makes me nervous because I remember Clinton Longley, and I have these memories seared in my mind of things like, oh yeah, we got to win. What happened? So
the Mad Bomber.
Yeah, I just don't want to relive those moments if I can help it. But also the other big football game coming up this weekend, Ohio State and Michigan. I mean, one will stay in the hunt for the football playoff, and the other one will be out probably.
That's right. And my wife's Washington Huskies they're the number 5 team. So one of the 2 above them is going to go out. So what I'm hoping for her sake is it's big. It's a big margin either way. 14-13 hurts her.
Yeah.
20-0 helps her.
Yeah, that's true. All right, and then one final thing, just get your feelings about some of the Hall of Fame nominees, particularly Manny Ramirez and Ivan Rodriguez. I don't see Manny getting in. Pudge, maybe.
I don't see Manny getting in the first time. He was the best hitter in baseball for a period of about 8 to 10 years. Kind of hard to argue. Pudge, because of his position, there are not a lot of catchers in it, and he certainly was one of the dominant catchers of his era. If not this year, I think he will get in. Who I think should get in, Jeff Bagwell, 297, 490 home runs. the best first baseman of his generation, only first baseman ever to go 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases in a season, and he did it twice. 20th best right-handed hitter of all time, 30th best overall hitter of all time. People don't realize how high he ranks. Not named in the Mitchell Report, never failed a steroids test to believe that people's suspicions of him doing steroids is what's kept him out so far. And Billy Wagner, the closer, who has the lowest batting average against and highest strikeouts per 9 inning of any pitcher in Major League history. If that doesn't get you in, I don't know what does.
And there's no favoritism towards Bagwell being an Astro.
That's
That had nothing to do with
there
it.
absolutely is.
All right. So now let's go on to political news. So last week we just we had there's been this brouhaha that's still kind of boiling over a little bit, which is Mike Pence went to see the performance of Hamilton, and then kind of got a little bit of a lecture from the actors, and that I thought Pence handled the issue very well. That was great, and it's been kind of interesting to watch how the reaction has been on both sides.
Right. I thought Pence was terrific. What he said was, he told his children, this is what freedom looks like. People say things to you and, speak truth to power and so forth. And I thought he's handled it with a lot of class. Trump has handled it how Trump handles things. We're going to have to get used to it. If you cross him, he's going to say something about it. He does not accept the slights, which I think, knowing how he thinks, as opposed to Obama, where you're, no drama and we're kind of guessing, and I'll let you know if I'm going to tell you anything. I think it's refreshing. Should they have lectured him? Like the guy said, it was their one shot, right? You're not going to get the vice president in front of you again. But it's part of, like, the press did this during the campaign, and their thing was, this is not the same. This is not normal. So we're absolved of following the normal rules of how to cover things, treat the other side, and so forth. We can just do whatever we want because this guy is not your normal candidate. And you keep telling us that, and you hurt yourself because, there's no, if you keep yelling fire, there's no fire. We're going to quit getting up when you yell fire.
Right, and then this guy's name is Dixon, I guess it is.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing, Heat Street found, they went back and they looked at his Twitter stream, and they found a few interesting tweets by this guy. St. Patty's Day weekend is like Christmas for black dudes who like white chicks. Happy holidays, boys. For every racist comment I get about Trayvon, I'm going to turn one white married suburban housewife and mother into a jump-off, the best, and more good than bad. Until I see legions of good cops in the street holding the bad cops accountable, they're all complicit. So, you can't say the guy didn't have an agenda. And
right.
Right?
Yeah, he's got a little trouble himself now. And, that, all these people, you enter the public spotlight, and you don't think, the days of you just being able to say that and walk off and, like, who was that dude, are over. We go look you up now, and you have a significant electronic trail, and you're accountable for it, everything you say.
Right. Okay, then yesterday we've been going through this back and forth with the press and Trump and everything, but apparently during the meeting he had with the New York Times, is that he made mention, I guess he was asked about investigating Hillary because he had said that he would instruct his attorney general when he was elected to go and further
look into her situation.
Look into her situation, yeah. But now he's basically kind of backed off. Which is probably, from the standpoint of he's not the top cop. It's the Justice Department that has to do it. Technically, it probably would have been out of place for him to say do so. Some conservatives are kind of upset. My general feeling was that I didn't think he was going to do anything anyway when he first said that, so none of this surprises me, so I don't get all upset about this. And that doesn't stop Trey Gowdy and others anyway, right?
Right. And that's what I think. And I think he should, what we have now is the president putting his thumb on the scales of justice. Don't do this and that and the other during the campaign to her. Withdraw this. Don't investigate. Don't indict. Announce you're not indicting. Everything they could do to help her, right? Where he is saying, I'm removed from that. Others, it works through the process. Now, he's obviously going to appoint some U.S. attorneys. It'll be especially significant who he appoints to the Southern and Eastern District of New York as they prosecute financial crimes and foundation charitable type of crimes. So there's a lot of, who gets those jobs and what their instructions are. But that's going to come. That should not come from the president. The president shouldn't be pointing out who to prosecute. And I think that it lets him rise above it, and whatever happens, happens. Because, I mean, like you say, Gowdy can still do it, and a number of people can still do it. And, my interest was in her not being elected president. She's not president. I can live with, I don't think she's going to run in the streets and kill people or whatever. I don't think she's a threat to the public.
Right, and we have investigated a lot of this to date. If Trey Gowdy wants to go ahead and do this, if the Justice Department wants to go ahead and do some other things, that's fine. But I think the damage has been done in terms of just mentioning this, talking about this, and pointing out, exposing the things that she has done, help prevent her from getting elected. And so I'm happy. I'm fine with that.
Right.
I don't need to see her in jail necessarily to be happy at this point.
Right.
I'm fine.
I don't either. And I think that right now you have a lot of people. The other side of this is you're letting some pretty serious crimes go too.
Right.
If she was selling access, if she was selling policy outcomes, and we can prove that, and we let you skate, then what stops the next guy?
Right.
Now I don't think anybody's gonna. I think presidential foundations will be looked at differently, scrutinized differently than they've ever been before going forward. I think that was one avenue of income that's kind of been shut off to Obama. I think if he tries to go in that direction, people will understand it in a different way.
All right, moving on. Next topic, the alt-right. Steve Bannon and Howard Dean calling Steve Bannon a Nazi. I mean, things have gotten really nasty here, and there's all the media is trying to make a big deal of trying to tie Trump to this, these neo-Nazis, the white nationalist movement and everything like that. They had a conference here in town, like somebody taped them, doing the Heil Hitler, the Sieg Heil kind of, signs. Trump has more or less disavowed them. In essence, it's not satisfactory enough to the media, of course. They're never going to be satisfied. It's
not. I mean, I literally, I saw someone last night. It's like, if he wants credibility on this, he needs to denounce them every day. Like every day at 2:30, he needs to stand to the microphone and say, I don't like these white nationalist people, okay? And we're not connected to them, and I don't support them every day. Because, the other thing is about a couple of things about this. One is, again, they're crying wolf. How many people are you going to call a Nazi? How many people are you going to call a racist? How many people are you going to say are totally unfit for public life? They can't all be they're not unfit for public life just because they don't pursue your policy mix, right? It's because that's what Hillary said during the campaign. Remember, she said, we had our differences with Bush and the other people that were in their way, right? But we respected them as people. No, you didn't. You treated them the same way you're treating him. You just got madder and madder as you lost more, basically, right? So, you keep saying this stuff, but the more you say it, the less effective it is.
Plus, to me, the media is spending a lot of time on this. I think that only helps these guys. I mean, the alt-right, you're giving them all this press attention. I think they're craving it. They're like, hey, great, you're paying attention.
These guys had 200 people. 200, 200. That's it.
So you get Spencer, written up in the front page of the Washington Post. I mean, there's all this attention. They've never had so much attention. Yeah. If they would ignore these guys, they would just kind of float out. They would not have that kind of thing.
Yeah. Here's the thing about it. We're ignoring them.
Yeah.
The right is ignoring them. We don't pay any attention. You know anybody that goes to Klan rallies? I've never, and I'm from the South. I'm from the middle of the South. I'm from the parish in the country that has the most people on death row, okay? The most racially segregated city in America. And I've never heard of a Klan rally. I'm not saying they didn't exist, but no one ever invited me. No one ever in any of my concentric circles of friends have ever been approached about being part of the Klan or these guys or any of these other groups. People are finding their way to it, but 200 people, that's nothing, right? That's a
right. And so you have over 60 million votes on both sides for both candidates. You're talking about 200 people gathering in Washington. The media is making it seem like there was this huge outpouring of support from these guys, and they had some major effect on the outcome of the election. Right. It's all nonsense.
And that they are connected to Trump.
Right.
The thing is the interesting thing to look at the journalism of this, such that you can call it that, is what they're having to do, the contortions they have to do to establish a tie from Trump to these people. Okay, so the tie is they have commented on stories on Breitbart. Therefore, Steve Bannon is a complete racist, and Trump hired Steve Bannon. That's their thing. I mean, that's as flimsy as it gets.
That's pretty much it. So last week, one of the things, and when I had my conversation with John Gizzi talking about the press secretary position, which is still open, he was saying that it was going to happen any day now. So now it's been several days. There's still nothing on the horizon that we've seen anything on it. It seems that there's been a shift towards other cabinet level people at this point, and they've left that open. But that's kind of an important position. And now the media is kind of they're kind of crying about there's not been a press conference. This is historic. Trump did this, I thought, a brilliant thing by going to basically putting this thing on the his transition page, his YouTube video, and talking about what he's going to do. Just get around the media.
They've been bypassed.
Yeah.
Someone sent me a thing yesterday that said it's one of the 7 steps despots take to deal with the press. They marginalize them. They speak directly to people. And I'm like, that's what I want them to do. I don't want the filter has become a filter. You're not explaining things to me anymore. You're tilting. You're prevaricating. You're exposing your bias, right? You're not giving them, that's like we talked about earlier. When it comes to presidential press coverage, what makes the Washington Post more credible than Breitbart anymore? Nothing. I mean, one of them is full on for the right, one of them's full on for the left, right? And so you read that, understanding it. You don't know anymore. Think there's an objective source, so it must be true, right?
Right. Yeah, and so now we have another one that adds to the pool of those that are, how we're going to cover Trump. First it was the New York Times saying honestly and fairly. Then it came the L.A. Times last week that jumped in on that. And now it's CNN's Jeff Zucker that's basically saying, we're going to cover them. We're going to hold their feet to the fire. But you're getting this very unusual reaction from the media in terms of we're going out and pronouncing and proclaiming how we're going to cover this administration. We want the public to know that we are going to try to be fair and honest and everything like that, knowing that their reputation is in tatters, trying to save what they've got.
Right.
But I think they're also just concerned about the relationship that they're going to have with Trump going forward after what happened.
Yeah, they're not relevant in the way they were the last cycle or will ever be again. He's the thing yesterday. I thought was I guess it was the day before yesterday. His little 2-minute video he put out about what he's doing, what he's going to do. I think that was a landmark thing in American journalism, because that's saying I'm not going through you guys. I don't care about your what you've all said. And so as that relates to the press secretary, why not Hope Hicks? She's been doing it for a long time. She knows what he likes her to say, right? And it's not going to be this gaggle where you are presenting the policy of the president anymore. They might take a few questions, right? But explain things. But this idea that we send this person out to explain what we're doing every day and to take your arrows and to try to dodge your questions, they're done with that. They're going to speak to the American people in a way that the president controls the message more, for better or for worse.
Right, and I think whether or not the reports out of that meeting that he had initially with some of these other media types the other day are true or not, that came out of the New York Post, where he apparently excoriated them and everything like that. For me, I'm kind of like, yeah, raw, go for it, because you're the president-elect. You can lay out the ground rules and you can go over and they didn't treat you well during the campaign. You are going to have somewhat of an adversarial relationship, and that's fine. If they expected to come in there and expected, well, hey,
let's work out how we're going to do this.
Yeah, we're going to be
we're not working out anything.
We're best buds or something like that. That wasn't going to happen. And
we talk, you listen.
Yeah, the reaction, I think they were stunned by the way they were treated, because no one's treated them like that. But everything is so different now. I mean, he's rewriting the rules.
They've gone from the power in this relationship to the unpower, right? To the vulnerable. Now the politician is controlling the message.
Right. Okay, so more campaign things or cabinet picks here. So we had Jeff Sessions, we had Mike Flynn, we've got Pompeo. Now we have Nikki Haley going to the UN apparently, and it looks like Romney is the leading candidate for Secretary of State.
The one thing that worries me about Romney, I think he could be an exceedingly good Secretary of State. He's dealt on those, did the Olympics and so forth. He's dealt in that international realm, which has got its own set of rules and customs and so forth. But at some point, people are going to get him in those rooms, and they're going to say, so tell us, is this guy crazy? And I worry about Romney's answer to that, because you could really undermine a lot of what America's trying to do in the world, even the parts he may agree with, right? If you intimate that the president's crazy or and he's had a lot of pretty harsh things to say for a sustained period of time. There were a lot of people who were against Trump, but Romney went out of his way for months, day after day, saying bad things about Trump. So can he, when he gets asked that question and he has reason to think no one will record the answer, what will he say? And it's very important to us. And I would need assurances that he would say the right stuff.
Right, because he wasn't fully on board with Trump, it is a risk that even inadvertently he could slip up, because that stuff that's been in the back of his mind, things that he had thought before, will just happen to slip out during some kind of conversation, and just everything will just go right down to the toilet after that. So,
but the CV is perfect.
Yeah.
It's like what he's done
Absolutely.
in his life is perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki Haley. I like Nikki Haley. I think she's been a pretty effective governor down South Carolina. Not quite sure about her international experience, but maybe this is part of the process too. I mean, not just a diversity pick. I mean, you've got a woman of Indian descent on top of that, but someone who maybe she can then kind of prepare herself for a bigger role in the Republican Party.
Right. I have tweets. There are people messaging me this morning. Okay, we like this because it puts her on the list for 2024 or whatever. Trump does not think much of the United Nations. I think in a subtle way this kind of says that. You have a governor with no international experience. It's like, I don't feel the need to find an international expert to send up there. This lady will do. And I think diversity dictated where she came in the order of picks being announced. I think they had done enough white guys where they felt the need to do something else.
Right. Apparently Ben Carson is saying that he's been offered the HUD position after backing out of the other positions and saying he really wasn't qualified to do these things. I'm not quite sure where Ben's going, but it sounds like Ben was going to wind up in the administration.
We always thought he would,
Yeah.
right? It's something, and I thought maybe he would end up in the D'Elio role, the faith-based. But this is not a bad one. This is the one where charismatic leadership, which is what he offers, could make a lot of difference. How housing policy meets America, and how we get people out of needing a house paid for by the government.
Right.
So I think that's an interesting pick and an interesting decision. And again, it's a department that Trump doesn't think much of anyway.
Right. All right. We'll move on here to the DNC chairman's race, because it continues to get interesting. I know you want to talk about this last week, and so as of last week, Martin O'Malley was in, and now he's out.
Now he's out.
So we still have Keith Ellison. We still have Howard Dean. My colleague Cliff Kincaid said that the NARAL chairwoman or president is interested in that. I'm not quite sure how far that will go. But what I think is interesting with the Ellison thing now is just that I saw a story this morning that he was going to be interviewed by the New York Times, and then he backed out because as people were told, that one of the questions they wanted to ask were his ties to the Nation of Islam, and so he's decided not to do
Ellison.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he has that. He's been in a lot of trouble for this. He was a Farrakhan acolyte. As someone on the other side, I wish they would pick him for two reasons. One is that that's totally the direction they do not need to go. Farther out from the American mainstream. If you look at that map of those counties, and it's blue here, and it's blue here, and it is red all the way in between. The red all the way in between. You're not winning those people back by putting a Keith Ellison in charge of the party. But if he did it, and if he had some success, it would be a necessary step, and I think it is a necessary step, to normalizing the concept of a Muslim in a prominent political position in the United States. I don't think it's something that we can or should say we're going to hold off. No Muslims in charge of anything. I don't think that's not American, right?
Right.
So I think I can see that. There's some advantage to them if they can make that work.
I think it's still a problem for them overall, because, as you said, he's got some issues. Howard Dean is kind of
Is wacko.
yeah, and what he did before is not going to. He can't replicate what he did before. The times have changed.
Right.
Everything has changed. That landscape has changed. Just because he was successful in his own mind and everything, I think he did some other things when he ran it before, doesn't mean he's going to be able to replicate that now. And what I thought was even funnier too was that apparently somebody asked about Joe Biden, and Biden said no. Oh, and the other thing about the Ellison thing too is that one of Ellison's problems is that people in the Obama administration, White House, they don't want him there.
Right. He's not their pick.
Yeah.
But they're not. You have no titular head of the party now, right?
Right.
Because the president's basically dead.
Right. So they have a real leadership vacuum. They have a leadership
Dead
vacuum, and they need somebody to re-energize the base. I don't see it being any of these guys. I think they're
Yeah. I got a message from one of my Democratic friends down in Texas when O'Malley dropped out. She said, I cried. Right. This was a very sad day because, they're going through what Republicans went through a few years ago, where it's this battle for the purists versus the people who say, hey, you can be a purist, but you're never going to win an election. And so they've got to mash that out like we did on our side, and come up with what's the winning formula. And what did we come up with? It doesn't look as conservative as any of us would have wanted 6 months ago, right? But it is something that we can when you have Myron E. Bell, Jim Carafano picking people for the administration, I feel good about where the administration's going.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just having a little bit of hard time trying to process somebody crying that after O'Malley dropped out.
Well, but I mean, this is somebody that works in the party.
Yeah.
This does party work. And they're like, this is getting hard to do. It's hard to talk people into Texas into, let's get on the Keith Ellison train.
Only thing, I mean, O'Malley's it would have been an interesting pick, but my mind keeps going is that all he wants is a job where he can get furniture when he's done.
Right. That's right. That was Hillary's approach.
All right, 2-minute warning. Go ahead.
2-minute warning. Down in my home state, a couple of things. One is Democrats are saying one last chance to kick Trump in the shins is wow, that was almost is to go down there. We have jungle primary on everybody else's election day, and then the two winners go have a runoff, which is next month, right? So there's one last Senate seat to be filled, and they're saying throw the money in for a guy named Foster Campbell, who's the Democratic candidate. Go down there, let's all go, carry signs, knock doors for him. Foster Campbell has lost more elections than most people can even remember. He has one eye because when they were building I-49, he went out and drove on an unopened stretch of it, crashed his car, knocked out his eye. And so, that would have made sense when it was Landrieu against Bill Cassidy, but it's not. But the winner of that race is going to be John Kennedy. Louisiana's going to have a senator named John Kennedy. The other thing is the New Orleans baseball team changed its nickname to the Baby Cakes. It was the Zephyrs, okay, since they got the team. They got the team from Denver when Denver got the Rockies. And so they've changed it to Baby Cakes. The state is in an uproar. Change that name. They hate it. But they've sold all this merchandise from it, so it's likely to be with us for at least some period of time.
Okay, I don't even know how to follow that part up necessarily. My thing here will just be to congratulate Tucker Carlson, who debuted on Fox News. He's got his own program now in the 7 o'clock slot. He succeeded Brit Hume, who took over for Greta Van Susteren when she quit abruptly in early September. And what I want to say here is that it's great for Tucker because Tucker's first week was boffo ratings.
Fabulous.
He just wiped everything up. Better ratings than Brit had and Greta had, and he just took over MSNBC and CNN. CNN had been gaining ground in that slot, and he just totally wiped them out. His overall ratings on all the demographics. I mean, not just the total viewers, but all the demographics, the key demo, and then the two other demos that they use to track things. He had more viewers in all of those than MSNBC, Chris Matthews, and Aaron Burnett on CNN had combined.
He's skewering people in the way that like MSNBC people do to conservatives. I mean, he's given them what we've taken for so long.
Maybe the next real Fox rock star for them and everything. All right, so that's it for our pre-Thanksgiving show. Thanks a lot. We're going to have to, we'll have a special show for you next Monday because I'll be traveling. So I'll see you next Monday for another edition of the Bias Buzz.